Deputy Speaker, I rise to speak on this matter of public importance, and I thank the Leader of the Opposition for bringing this important matter to the attention of the House. This MPI, Deputy Speaker, addresses the failure of the Minister for Indigenous Australians and the failure of the government to answer questions that have been put this week in this place. These are genuine questions. These are questions that the Australian people have. These are questions that all of us, including on your side, you all have constituents that are asking you these questions.
I'll just remind the member for Hughes, when you use the word you are directly reflecting on me.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, many constituents throughout Australia are asking these same questions that we have put this week to the Minister. These are questions that need to be answered. This referendum is very important. This is very important for Indigenous Australians, and it's very important for non-Indigenous Australians. I don't know that there is anyone in this country that is not appalled at this appalling, absolutely appalling gap between the health, welfare, the education standards of Indigenous Australians and non-Indigenous Australians. My husband's family comes from a remote community right out in Western New South Wales called Lake Cargelliga. I have seen firsthand the way that a lot of Indigenous Australians live. I may represent a city electorate that does not have a very high Indigenous population. However, with family that are Indigenous, I feel very strongly about constitutional recognition of Indigenous Australians and about doing something real to address the appalling standards of many Indigenous Australians in this country. Therefore, when I first spoke on this legislation, Deputy Speaker, I spoke about us needing to wake up as a nation the day after the referendum and to be able to look ourselves in the mirror, to be able to look at our fellow Australians, for non-Indigenous Australians to be able to look at Indigenous Australians, for Indigenous Australians to be able to look at non-Indigenous Australians. We need to wake up the day after this referendum and be united. The way that this process has been handled to date by the Prime Minister is not leading us down that path. It's dividing Australia. It is going to set us up, I believe, if it continues this way, it is setting our country up for a dreadful problem with race relations going far into the future. That is not something that I want. That is not something that anyone in this place wants. Changing our constitution has been made very difficult by our forefathers. The drafters of this document deliberately made it difficult. There is a reason why thousands and thousands of people each year travel across the world and choose Australia as their home. That is because we have one of the oldest democracies. And it is based on a founding document that is simple in its language and that is very difficult to change, and that was done deliberately. We've only had 8 occasions since Federation where this document has been changed. Therefore, if the government is going to the Australian people and saying, we are now asking you to change this document, to make a fundamental change to our constitution, I again ask that this is not the way. I say this is not the way to go about it. This should have been 2 questions. It should have been done so differently. We could have had 80, 90, maybe 95% of Australians commit to constitutional recognition of Indigenous Australians. That would have been a day for celebration. That is how that day would look the day after the referendum. If this continues down this path, with questions failed to be answered, we will wake up the morning after this referendum a divided nation, a very sad nation. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you.